Bright QT. Every student matters.
Hello students. So now talking about our next topic here, that is number of parties we should have. Before this students, you have learnt about the political parties, right? And in political parties we have talked about the meaning, nature, necessity, and most importantly the functions of political parties. Now once we have understood the whole concept of what is political party, why do we need a political party, as well as the functions of these political parties, now we need to understand how many political parties should our country have. Now if we look at the present data, we see that more than 1,866 parties are registered with the Election Commission of India. Now, have you heard the term Election Commission, students? So, it is a body, a commission that is responsible for contesting elections in India. Now, who appoints this body, this commission? So, it is appointed by the president of our country. Okay? So, basically, we see that any party who have to contest elections, they have to register it with the Election Commission of India. Now, while talking about the number of political parties, let us try to understand the various types of political parties that exist, not only in India, but all over the world. So, there are three party systems that we are going to discuss here. Three party systems that we have to talk about. So, the first one is one-party system. Now, what do we understand by this one-party system? As the name suggests, it means that only one party is allowed to rule and control the government, right? So, in one-party system, quite simple to understand, only one party is allowed to rule and control. One by one, we are going to discuss about all these party systems in detail here. But let us try to understand the meaning of these party systems. So, in two-party system, power usually changes between two main parties. So, there are two dominant parties and the power is basically exchanging between these two parties here, or changing between these two parties. Now, several other parties might win a few seats. Now, in two-party system or two-party system, we see that there are some other parties, but they have a very few chance of winning. So, they win quite limited seats, quite few seats here. But there are two main dominant parties that are contesting elections among themselves. Now, in multi-party system, several parties join hands for contesting elections and winning elections through alliance or coalition. Now, here we are going to talk about alliance and coalition government. So, you must have heard the term coalition somewhere. Now, yes, students, coalition is a term that you might have heard in context of your country, India. So, when we are talking about our country, India, we see that we have multi-party system. And the term alliance or coalition, here what does that mean? What does it mean? So, it means that when any single party, it does not have enough majority to form the ruling party, what do they do? So, they form alliance, right? So, different parties, they come together to form alliance, and such government form is known as the coalition government, right? So, the government formed by alliance. Now, here we see about, we are going to understand about all these party systems. So, the first one is multi-party system. So, in multi-party system, again as the name suggests, three or more parties have the capacity to gain control of the government. Like I told you students, it is about a coalition party, or a single party can also form, but mostly in multi-party system what happens, three or more parties they are coming together in order to gain control of the government, right? To form the majority. So people form multiple, distinct, officially recognized groups called political parties, right? So in this form of, we see that in multi-party system, people, they are forming multiple distinct and officially recognized parties called these political parties, and they form this multi-party system. So each party competes and contests for votes. All these parties, they are fighting for the votes in elections. In India, we have multi-party system, but on the negative side, we see that multi-party system is cumbersome and leads to political instability. Yes, students. Now, sometimes what happens sometimes? So, when we are talking about multi-party system, taking example of through 2-3 parties, let's say in any general election, BJP does not have majority. Now, this is an ideal case. Let's not take it very seriously here. So, this is an ideal case or scenario that I'm creating in order to understand this concept. So, let's say BJP has to join with BSP, another national party here, or let's say Congress, right? So, some way they have to come together to form an alliance, or any other party, right? Any other party. If say Congress was in majority at some times, right? So, I'm talking about any XYZ party. So, these XYZ parties, they are coming together to form an alliance, but they have different ideologies, right, students? So, we have already learned this concept. Let's say X has based his ideology on something else. Y is different from that ideology, and Z is entirely different from the ideologies of X and Y. So definitely when policy making process will come along, so these political parties might have differences among their opinions. So therefore, multi-party system, it becomes cumbersome, quite confusing for people, and also chaotic for them to take major decisions, and it leads to political instability, right? On the positive side, this system is healthy for multi-religious and multilingual countries. But sometimes what happens when we are looking at the positive side here? We see that the system that is multi-party system, it basically is good for multi-religious and multilingual countries. A place where people belonging to different religion and speaking different languages. So these political parties, they might represent this broad social base here. People belonging to different religion and people speaking different languages. So it might be good for them. Talking about two-party system here. So in two-party system, what happens? The power shifts between two major dominant parties, right? So here when we are talking about multi-party system, India is the best example. Talking about two-party system, the power is shifting between two major dominant parties. To win elections, the winner has to get maximum number of votes, but do not necessarily a majority of votes. Here, please note this important point. Now, X and Y, these are the two dominant parties. And Z, W, these are some of the small parties in that particular country. So, in order to win the election, these two dominant parties, they have to get maximum number of votes. Right? They do not have to get majority of votes, but maximum number. Right? So, if this party X gets 45 seats and Y is getting only 20 seats, so definitely the clear winner here is the X party. Right? So, such party system, it prevails in the USA, United Kingdom, Canada, where only two parties win significant numbers of seats. Right? So, here you can see that when we are talking about USA, what are the two important parties that you have heard the name there? So, one is your Republican and the other one is your Democrats. Right? When we are talking about United Kingdom, we see that we have the Labour Party, right? When we are talking about the United Kingdom, right, 16th century, 15th century, at that time, they were the oldest parties there. So these two parties were the Tories and the Whigs. Right, students? So in Canada also we have two dominant parties. So here we see that they get significant number of votes or seats. Supporters of this system believe that it prevents dangers of fragmentation. So when there are two parties, we see that these parties, they avoid this idea, this issue of fragmentation, division. Right? In simple terms, it is division. So basically, the supporters of two-party system, they believe in this idea that they are getting fair chances of winning. Right? So once they can vote for X and they can see their works, their policies being initiated. If they are not liking it, they are going to vote for Y in the next election. Right? So this is how the system is working here. Now, when we are talking about one-party system, here as the name suggests, only one party prevails, right? So, there is no competition in this system. Two choices with voters. One is not to vote at all. The other one is write yes or no against the name of the candidates nominated by the party. So, here we see that they do not have to vote. There is already a ruler there. Basically, when we are talking about monarchy, right, or autocratic rule, you have heard these terms in your history subject. Or another part that can happen is that there are the candidates, let's say X, Y, Z, whatsoever. So, they have been nominated by the party themselves. And among these candidates, the people, they have to write just yes or no, Y or N. Okay? So this is how elections take place in the one-party system. Now the examples of one-party system can be seen in communist countries like China, North Korea and Cuba. So in China, we know that there is only one party ruling, that is the China Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party. When we talk about North Korea, we know that the famous dictator there is a dictatorial rule there, right? Only one person is ruling, right? In Cuba also we have the communist country where we have this rule, right? So there is only one party ruling in that particular region. So you have understood the three-party system here, student? When we are talking about again one-party system, we see that supporters of single-party system claim that this system enables the government to mobilize every citizen. Now, how are they supporting this one-party system? We all know that one-party system is never good for democracy. When we are talking about a democratic country, we cannot support the ideology of one-party system. Because in democracy, we need people to criticize the government in order to check that they are not becoming autocratic in nature. The basic idea is that against this whole idea of one-party system, right? So here we see that the supporters of one-party system, they claim that the government mobilizes every citizens. It limits the choices and freedoms of citizens. Definitely, students, they do not have any other choice in order to vote to any other party. Only one party is there. Maximum what they can do is that they are going to vote for the nominated candidates from that particular party, right? So this is how elections take place in these different regions here. Now coming to the exercise section, which of these countries has a one-party system? India, China, USA, UK. What is the correct answer here? The correct answer here, students, is China. We just read it right now. The Communist Party of China Is the single party here? Ruling party? Now, which of these is not a good option for a democratic state? One party, two party, multi-party, none of the above. Which is not a good option here, students? Two party can work sometime, at least people will have a choice there. Multi-party definitely basis of democratic system, but one party, is it democratic in nature? No, students. So the correct answer here is A. It is not a good option for democratic states. Name two countries each adhering to one-party system and two-party system. Now, when we are talking about one-party system, what are the options for you here? You have just learnt right now. You can write China, you can write Cuba, you can also write North Korea. Any of these two countries. When we are talking about two-party system, we can write about USA, we can talk about United Kingdoms, we can talk about Canada. Right? Any of these countries here. So this is how you are going to answer this question.